Virtual Pilgrimage of the New Testament, Episode 2, The Beginning of the Ministry of Jesus Christ. Number 13. The Possible Family Home of Jesus in Nazareth. And he came and dwelt in a city called Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken through the prophets, he will be called a Nazarene. Matthew 2:23. The Holy Family returned from Egypt to Nazareth, the town where Jesus spent most of his earthly life. The word Nazareth comes from the Hebrew word for branch, netzer. In Isaiah 11, we read that the Messiah would be from the line of Jesse and be known as a branch, netzer. Then the prophet Zechariah foretold that the man whose name is the branch will grow up out of his place and build the temple of the Lord. The Messiah was known as Jesus of Nazareth. In 2006, Dr. Ken Dark, a British archaeologist from the University of Reading, discovered a first-century Jewish dwelling in the grounds of the Sisters of Nazareth convent. It was a 2-story house with 2 cisterns for water. It was occupied during the 1st century, then abandoned, and used as a burial place with a rolling stone tomb. Then in Byzantine and Crusader times, it was a place of Christian worship, with an altar indicating that it was a place of pilgrimage. It was known as the Church of the Nutrition, where Jesus Christ was nourished and raised in Nazareth.
This is the courtyard of Jesus' home. So this would have been inside the courtyard area. It would have been a lot larger, but you can see the natural rock right here. That would have been one wall. It would have extended over to here.
Where was the second floor? The steps
Yeah.
to the second floor?
Yes.
To the roof?
This is Crusader time.
Crusader Church, okay.
But all of this would have been
The first
part of it.
century.
And this is a manger that dates back to the time of Christ.
Number 14. The 6th century Medeba map of the Holy Land. These things were done in Bethabara, beyond Jordan, where John was baptizing. John 1, verse 28. In 1884, while building the Church of St. George in Medeba, Jordan, builders uncovered a floor mosaic map of the Holy Land. It originally measured 7 meters by 21 meters, 22 feet by 69 feet, and is the oldest original surviving cartographic depiction of the Holy Land, especially Jerusalem. It is dated to the years 542 to 570 AD, and although it has some inaccuracies, it can be helpful by showing the approximate location of the place of baptism of Jesus.
The church is a typical Greek Orthodox church. And here's the mosaic map. The map was created using 2.3 million pieces depicted on a 25 by 5 mosaic floor. That's Bethlehem up there, and the oval-shaped city is Jerusalem. Further up is the Jordan River, and to the right is the Dead Sea. The map was used in the excavation and rediscovery of the Jesus' baptism site, a site we will be visiting later on today.
Number 15. The place of Jesus' baptism. Then Jesus came from Galilee to John at the Jordan to be baptized by him. But John prevented him, saying, I need to be baptized by you, and are you coming to me? But Jesus answered and said to him, Permit it to be so now, because it is fitting for us to fulfill all righteousness. Then he allowed him. And when he was baptized, Jesus came up immediately from the water, and behold, the heavens were opened to him, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove, and lighting upon him. And behold, a voice from heaven saying, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Matthew 2:13-17. John the Baptist came preaching in the wilderness to fulfill Isaiah's prophecy over 400 years beforehand, and Malachi's prophecy over 400 years earlier. In 1998, following the clues from the Medeba map, Franciscan friar Dr. Michele Piccirillo found the actual location of the baptism of Jesus Christ. At the site are the remains of the Byzantine Church of St. John the Baptist with a cross-shaped baptismal font, the only one of its kind in the world. This is remembered as the place where John baptized Jesus, and for centuries during Byzantine times, thousands of believers were baptized at this site. After being baptized, pilgrims carved crosses to commemorate their baptism. Crosses can be seen by the hundreds here. Ancient pilgrims, such as Theodosius, the Piacenza pilgrim, and Abbot Daniel all wrote about the location. Their descriptions match this place perfectly. Number 16. The home of John the Baptist and Elijah's Hill. In those days, John the Baptist came preaching in the wilderness of Judea and saying, Repent, because the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Because this is he who was spoken of through the prophet Isaiah, saying, The voice of one shouting in the wilderness, Prepare the way of the Lord, make his path straight. Matthew 3:1-3. And he went away beyond the Jordan to the place where John was baptizing at first, and there he stayed. Then many came to him and said, John performed no miracle, but all the things that John spoke about this man are true. And many believed on him there. John 10:40-42. Then in 1998, after the discovery of the actual baptism site, Dr. Mohammed Wahib, a Jordanian archaeologist, discovered the ruins of a Byzantine-era church and monastery constructed where it was believed that John the Baptist had lived, and where Elijah went to heaven on a chariot of fire. Jesus came to this place to get away from angry people who wanted to harm him and to be with John the Baptist. At that place, many believed in Jesus. Hundreds of monks lived in this area over many centuries, wanting to get close to God and to live a life stripped of possessions, just as John the Baptist did. Number 17. The place of Jesus' temptation for 40 days. Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, afterward he was hungry. Now when the tempter came to him, he said, "If you are the Son of God, command that these stones become bread." But he replied and said, "It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God." Matthew 4:1-4. This site is believed to be the place where Jesus fasted 40 days and nights and was tempted by the devil. At this location is the Greek Orthodox Monastery of the Temptation. Empress Helena, mother of Constantine, made a pilgrimage to the Cave of the Temptation in 326 AD. The cave became a monastery in the 6th century and is now staffed by 3 Orthodox monks who lead tours for visitors.
The monastery is located on Mount of the Temptation, west of the city of Jericho. It consists of the main church, the Church of the Shrine, a natural cave in the rock, and a narrow corridor with upper right and left chambers. Jesus is tested in the wilderness. Matthew 4. Then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. After fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. The tempter came to him and said, "If you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread." Jesus answered, "It is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth."
Number 18. The Fortress of Machaerus, place of John the Baptist execution. And swiftly she came in immediately to the king and asked, saying, "I want you to give me the head of John the Baptist on a platter at once." And the king was exceedingly sorry, Yet because of his oath and because of those who sat with him, he did not want to refuse her. So immediately the king sent an executioner and commanded his head to be brought. And he went and beheaded him in the prison, brought his head on a platter, and gave it to the girl. And the girl gave it to her mother. And when his disciples heard of it, they came and took away his corpse and laid it in a tomb. Mark 6:25-29. In 1807, Dr. Ulrich Jasper Seetzen, a German doctor and explorer, discovered the fortress of Machaerus. This is where John the Baptist was imprisoned and beheaded. And although the Gospel does not give a location in Matthew 14:1-12, the writings of Flavius Josephus tell us that these events took place here. This is where John the Baptist spent his final days. Number 19. Cana, where Jesus changed water to wine. On the third day there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Now both Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding. And when they ran out of grape juice, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does your concern have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Whatever he says to you, do it." Now there were set there 6 water pots of stone, according to the manner of the purification of the Jews, containing 2 or 3 measures each. Jesus said to them, "Fill the water pots with water." And they filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, "Draw some out now, and take it to the master of the feast." And they took it. When the master of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine, and did not know where it came from, but the servants who had drawn the water knew, the master of the feast called the bridegroom, and said to him, "Every man at the beginning sets out the good wine, and when the guests fully drink that, then the inferior. But you have kept the good wine until now." This beginning of miracles Jesus did in Cana of Galilee, and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed on him. John 2:1-11. The Cana Catholic Wedding Church in Kfar Cana, built in 1883, sits on top of ruins of what many believe to be the town of Cana in Galilee. In 1997, excavations by Father Eugenio Aleata, an Italian Franciscan archaeologist, uncovered ruins of houses from the 1st to 4th centuries AD and structures from Byzantine times. An inscription in Aramaic was found which reads, "In memory of the pious Joseph, son of Tanhum, son of Bota, and of his children who made this table, may it be for them a blessing. Amen." A winepress was found at the site, as well as large stone jars that could have been preserved as the jars Jesus used to turn water into wine.
Kept the good wine until now. This beginning of signs Jesus did in Cana of Galilee, and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him.
Welcome to the wedding church at Cana of Galilee. Many people believe that this is the actual place where Jesus turned the water into wine, what is also believed to be his very first miracle. What is also neat about this place are the ruins of a 4th century synagogue underneath. Today, however, a Catholic church stands on top of those ruins, and this church went through some major renovations and archaeological research in the second half of the 1990s and
Number 20. Alternate location of Cana where Jesus changed water to wine. On the 3rd day there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Now both Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding. And when they ran out of grape juice, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does your concern have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Whatever he says to you, do it." Now there were set there 6 water pots of stone, according to the manner of purification of the Jews, containing 2 or 3 measures each. Jesus said to them, "Fill the water pots with water." And they filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, "Draw some out now, and take it to the master of the feast." And they took it. When the master of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine, and did not know where it came from, but the servants who had drawn the water knew, the master of the feast called the bridegroom, and said to him, "Every man at the beginning sets out the good wine, and when the guests fully drink that, then the inferior. But you have kept the good wine until now." This beginning of miracles Jesus did in Cana of Galilee, and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed on him. John 2, 1-11. To the northwest of the Cana Catholic Wedding Church, which is evidence of a small village from the Hellenistic period, which began in 323 BC onwards, this village contained a mikveh used for Jewish ritual bathing, and a structure that resembles a Roman-era synagogue. A cave complex at the southern end shows that it was used as a Christian place of worship, with an altar decorated by a Maltese-style cross, and 2 stone jars with room for another 4 jars, matching the description in John 2, 1-11.
There it is! Whoa! There it is!
Hold on, I'm coming.
This is it?
You found it.
Wow, this is it. Okay, let me put a long shirt on and I'm going in.
Okay. All right.
All right, I'm going in.
Be careful, okay?
Yeah, I've got the neck cover and everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, be careful not to fall because this has filled in, but you don't know if it's filled in well.
Yeah.
What do you see through the hole?
Oh my. It kind of collapsed.
Oh no.
Yeah.
The shape of it?
It goes in. It goes in, but it collapsed.
I was hoping we will be able to see the crosses and everything they said they found.
Yeah.
Do you see?
That's not it.
That's not it?
No, this is not it. There's nothing in here.
Oh man.
It's a bit disappointing because we really hoped to see the altar with the cross, but
What a bummer.
a bit sad that we couldn't go down and see the actual altar with the cross from 5th century. The encouraging part is that we are in an ancient synagogue. This is a 1st century synagogue, and then later converted into a church. There's a baptismal place right there, and a mikveh probably in the 1st century. And we can just imagine what this place looked like when Jesus turned water into wine.
Number 21. Synagogue in Nazareth, where Jesus preached. So he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up. And as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day, and stood up to read. And he was handed the book of the prophet Isaiah. And when he had opened the book, he found the place where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord." Then he closed the book and gave it back to the attendant and sat down. And the eyes of all who were in the synagogue were fixed on him. And he began to say to them, "Today this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." So all bore witness to him and marveled at the gracious words which proceeded out of his mouth. And they said, "Is this not Joseph's son?" He said to them, "You will surely say this proverb to me, 'Physician, heal yourself. Whatever we have heard done in Capernaum, do also here in your country." Then he said, "Assuredly I say to you, no prophet is accepted in his own country. But I tell you truly, many widows were in Israel in the days of Elijah, when the heaven was shut up 3 years and 6 months, and there was a great famine throughout all the land. But to none of them was Elijah sent, except to Zarephath, in the region of Sidon, to a woman who was a widow. And many lepers were in Israel in the time of Elisha the prophet, and none of them was cleansed, except Naaman the Syrian." So all those in the synagogue, when they heard these things, were filled with wrath, and rose up and thrust him out of the city. And they led him to the brow of the hill on which their city was built, that they might throw him down over the cliff. Then passing through the midst of them, he went his way. Luke 4:16-30. The synagogue church is a 12th century church built by the Crusaders. According to tradition, it is built upon the exact site of the first century synagogue where Jesus learned, grew up, preached, and was rejected by his own fellow Nazarenes. It was in the care of the Franciscans for centuries, until the 18th century, when the ruler Daher al-Omar gave it to the Greek Catholics. It is now in the care of the Melkite Catholic Church, which built a modern church next door in 1887. Number 22. Mount Precipice in Nazareth, where Jesus rejected. So all those in the synagogue, when they heard these things, were filled with wrath, and rose up and thrust him out of the city. And they led him to the brow of the hill on which their city was built, that they might throw him down over the cliff. But passing through the midst of them, he went his way. Luke 4:28-30. The prophet Isaiah foretold the coming Messiah's rejection. He wrote, "He is despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And we hid, as it were, our faces from him. He was despised, and we did not esteem him." About 2 kilometers to the south of the center of the city of Nazareth is a cliff which rises to an elevation of 395 meters, 1,296 feet. Here is the place where the unbelieving Nazarenes brought Jesus from the synagogue in order to throw him down and kill him. Miraculously, Jesus walked right through the crowd and went on his way to Capernaum. He left Nazareth from the tribe of Zebulun and came to Capernaum in the tribe of Naphtali to fulfill the prophecy of Isaiah.
And here there is a quarry. Down below us there is a quarry, and that's why there is a vertical wall. And this was a quarry also in Jesus' time. So Nazareth is there. Imagine the people of Nazareth ran after Jesus and they won't push him down a cliff. But as I read, he went among them and went to Capernaum. This is a place that you can really understand everything. You see the view, you see the location of Nazareth, and so on.
Number 23, the place of the call of the first disciples. And Jesus, walking by the Sea of Galilee, saw 2 brethren, Simon called Peter, and Andrew his brother, casting a net into the sea, because they were fishermen. And he said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." And they immediately left their nets and followed him. And going on from there, he saw 2 more brethren, James the son of Zebedee, and John his brother, in a boat with Zebedee their father, mending their nets. And he called them. And immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. Matthew 4:18-22. The prophet Isaiah foretold that the great light would come to Galilee. First, the land of Zebulun, where Nazareth is located, then to the land of Naphtali, where Capernaum is located. Somewhere along the northern shoreline of the Sea of Galilee, near the city of Capernaum, is where Jesus fulfilled prophecy and called his disciples in Matthew 4:18-22. Peter, Andrew, James, and John left their nets and livelihood and followed Jesus. Mount Arbel is in the background, where Jesus prayed one evening while the disciples rowed out on the lake. This mountain is also believed to be the place where Jesus gave the Great Commission in Matthew 28:18-20. Around this spot in the middle of the lake is where Jesus met his disciples, walking on the water. Number 24. First century fishing boat discovered and restored. And again he began to teach by the seaside, and a large crowd was gathered to him, so that he got into a boat and sat in it on the sea. Then the entire crowd was by the sea on the land. Mark 4, verse 1. In 1986, two Israeli fishermen, Moshe and Yuval Lufan, discovered something sticking out of the beach. It was an ancient, well-crafted boat that had been buried in the sand for 2,000 years. It would have been the type of boat that Jesus and his disciples used on the Sea of Galilee. It was carefully restored and is now on display at the Yigal Allon Museum in Ginosar, Israel.
This right here is a boat that they found here in the Galilee that dates back around 2,000 years, and they dug it out of the mud and brought it up into the museum right here and preserved it. And this is basically something that would be used around Jesus' time for, they don't know if it's actual fishing boat or whatever, but it's a boat that dates back to that time. And one of the few finds I ever had that is that significant.